Wow.
Should be good.
Should be good. Before we start, just check the mic. Check every the audio goes well, and then we can start
Okay.
the show.
Definitely got video on both.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. If audio it's fine, then we can start. We had some difficulties with OBS.
We're good. Go for it.
Okay, good. Go for it. Another TROM-Cast, and this one it's quite special because we released something new. We released tradefree.org, the website, and we are going to discuss about it. And we are going to discuss this new kind of approach that we pushed ROM with or through for the past year or 2 years or so. And we are going to discuss even, I don't know, even the Venus project, for example, because I put Venus project in TROM documentary and talk a lot about Venus project and resource-based economy, how they may differ for what we are trying to do here, or TZM, and mostly like this trade fee concept. So we released these days, we released this website, tradefree.org. If you, Cody can show us. Show it.
Yes.
Okay. Because we had this idea of, I mean, we explained when we presented the origin of most problems, the main TROM book, we made a TROM-Cast and we explained what we mean by that, how we should focus on how the problem is trade, basically, and how we should focus on making it obsolete through this kind of trade-free goods and services approach. And this trade-free website.org, it's almost like open source. It's almost like a page explaining open source, and people could link to it. For example, we have TROM-Jaro. It's a custom Linux-based operating system, and we say this operating system is trade-free, and we put a link to the tradefree.org, so people can click it and be like, okay, what is this trade-free? And they can get a very short explanation of what trade-free is. So that's what we're trying to do with this website. And the website is, it's very simply explained. For example, let's see if I see the stream, but if you, first thing, you'll see a video. It's a video that we made in Spain in many languages, and it explains simply. And even that video, for example, as a proof of concept, is not streaming from a website. It's decentralized. It streams from multiple computers, and that's a great thing. That's a great thing to have. It's like a proof of concept to have to how to not trade, like how to store a video without trading, basically, like buying a server or shit like that. So it's great. It's like Ziad helped with implementing it, so it's fantastic that we proved that even if that kind of thing works. And if you scroll a bit down, just to explain it briefly, and then we can discuss about it. If you scroll a bit down, you'll see I divided it in three things, like what creates the problem, what or who creates the problems in the world today, you know, and then what part of this environment it's harmful or it's toxic for humans. And we argue that it's trade, you know, this kind of trade between people, like some people call it a monetary system, but it's more than that. It's like cryptocurrencies and social credits and so forth. Okay, so that's the main idea. And if you scroll a bit down, we explain just a bit more, and then we give links to the origin of most problems, the big book, and yeah, and it's a short explanation, and you can even save the website if you want it. You can save it on a computer, you can translate it, you can do whatever. We even have a short video how we make a logo, this kind of logo. We said maybe it's an interesting logo for trade free. You know, this logo is not hugely important, but it's the idea itself. It's more and more important. And yeah, if the website is also decentralized on the data network. So if you have the bigger browser, you can access it the entire website in a decentralized way. So it doesn't have to be tradefree.org. So that's the idea behind it, and I think it's an interesting idea. And I will talk a lot about like how I arrived with this kind of line of thinking and how we should approach it from now on. But yeah, guys, if you want to, what do you think about this kind of approach?
I think the beauty about it is that it's so simple. Like, it's simple to understand. It has a nice design. It looks clean on the white background, so people, yeah, can easily get it. Even like a 10-year-old can read it through and get the idea. So I think that's probably one of the best things. Because everybody has to understand that, of course. Yeah.
Just the efficiency of tackling trade as, you know, just the root of all these symptomatic problems we see pop out, instead of picking one of those heads that trade rears its form into. Yeah, we can go right at the root here and address much more issues, much more effectively. Oh wow.
I can talk a bit about, if you guys don't like, you can interrupt me and whatever. But I want to talk just a bit, like for a few minutes. So I think in 2006 or so, I discovered the Venus project. I watched Future by Design, and I think it resonated a lot with me because I've seen Jack Fresco. I've seen this old guy who is talking so sharply, even if he was like, I think he was in his 80s, late 80s, talking so sharply about this monetary system and how this monetary system creates so much like perverse behavior. And I completely agree with that, because even before watching this documentary, I was like, I've seen my parents struggling with money and so forth, and I realized that it's money. You know, why don't have enough scientific research? Money, you know. Why this? Why that? You know, money, all the time was money. Hold on, let me just stop my notifications on my desktop. And I've seen a documentary, and I said that's interesting. No, he talks about the same things that and he had this kind of idea for what he called the Venus Project. You know, this kind of society where it's an abundance of stuff, and people can have access to for free, like money free, to goods, to services, and this will create a better environment. So this will create better behaviors. So what I got from that, and I kind of realized that even before, I got it that the environment pollutes people. It makes them really like awful and doing bad stuff. And the part of that environment is the monetary system. That's why I got to know, okay, so now we can like have a cluster. This is an idea. This is the problem, the monetary system, and let's fucking deal with it. No, let's move away from it. Let's create an abundance of goods and services, because he said that with abundance, you cannot sell stuff. You know, it's an abundance of I don't know, trees growing, I don't know, oranges. No one can sell oranges and so forth and so forth. So that was partially my inspiration for Tom documentary. And I think it was a great set of ideas, but like we will discuss, I think we should approach it in a different way, because there are some holes in this idea, or at least what I understand from this idea, there are some holes. And what kind of holes do you think, guys, are, if we take this approach, you know, forget it's about the Venus project, you know, think about this approach, you know, let's build a resource-based economy, let's get rid of this monetary system, and let's make this kind of cities to show this kind of world. Do you think there are some holes, or do you agree with that?
Well, with their approach, I did come across the Venus project before I came to TROM, but then I was never 100% sold on the concept that they were trying to say, because it was a very good concept, and like you were saying, they spoke about a lot of things that even I was thinking of at the time, and I was watching a couple of documentaries, but they never, they shy away from actually attacking the problem, or at least defining the problem at its most fundamental. Which is why when I found the TROM project and they said that trade is the source of most problems, it made sense, because at that point, through my own introspection, I wasn't calling it trade, but I was thinking that everyone was overrun with this transactional mentality to give something. I mean, you give something only when you want something in return, and then if you receive something, you must give something. It is expected that you give something before you receive. Can you still hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. So with the Venus project, it's actually quite interesting when they show you bigger cities. They try and show you the larger picture and everything that will come, but without finding the problem at a fundamental level, it's going to be people are going to come up with many reasons to just refute your idea. But with the trade-free project, when it's so clearly defined that trade is the source of most problems, you can then put that question to other people. Everyone can pick up that question and verify whether that is true or not. It's what you would do scientifically, right? Anything that you want, and see how trade manages to ruin it. It's so easy to find so many examples. So for me, I guess that's what I think is better about the trade-free approach as compared to other. There are so many. I mean, the Venus project is just one. There are so many other ideas out there. Regenerative cultures. There's degrowth. There are so many things, but they never truly speak about the core of the problem. That even if you take away the monetary system, like you're saying, money is just one type of trade. You're not attacking. You're not defining the problem, which is trade.
Yeah, I can add that I've seen the documentaries of the Venus project, The Choice is Ours, and Future by Design and stuff. I was like, oh, interesting. Yeah, these cities look nice. They have some awesome designs, like how the future can look like. And also, of course, the resource-based economy with the city, like the circular city. And I was like, okay, guys, let's build the city.
Yeah.
but yeah, it's like that people maybe think, okay, we only need to buy these cities. Like everybody has to know about that. And then we buy these, build these cities, and then it's going to be a wonderful future. But yeah, that's the thing, because I don't think it will work that way. Like, I think, yeah, we need, as we say, we need to know the problem. Like the germ theory of diseases, we need to know the problem, and then we can tackle the problem and come up with solutions. And there are many solutions. And the Venus project with the resource-based economy, or with these circular cities, it's only one solution. Maybe there are so many other solutions. Like it's wonderful with the open source community. I mean, you can see, okay, they say the proprietary software is the problem. Okay, and with this in mind, we can come up with solutions. And now there are so like hundreds or thousands of open source projects, and I think that's the beauty of it. And that's also the beauty of trade free, like, because I can start straight away. I can produce trade-free goods and services today. I can just help people without expecting something in return. And this is just like empowering for people.
Yeah, that's precisely the point. It's so simple.
Exactly.
The problem is trade. How do you start dealing with that problem is automatically start doing something trade-free, no matter how small, how little. Do something trade-free. Right? I mean, don't get me wrong. There are a lot of things I agree with Venus Project and Jacques Fresco. I think he's brilliant. The way he defines things is really clear, really concise. I mean, the only people who argue against the Venus Project and everything that they have to say are people who are looking to argue. I mean, there's no harm in that. But where do you go from there? Right? It doesn't give you an action plan. You still have to wait for the city. And I haven't gone through all of their material because I keep wondering, okay, resource-based economy, I agree. Who's in charge of the resources? Is there a machine, a computer somewhere that tells you that we will go, if you have to compare apples and oranges, depending on the soil quality and the atmosphere, sunlight, how much water a place has, you take all that knowledge and a computer churns out that we can afford to have so many apples or oranges based on the resources? Or is it an expert, a scientist who's saying this? Or is it a different kind of government? It's not really clear. At least I think I might be ignorant on the topic, but you know, it's also scary for a lot of people when you tell them that, no, we're going to start listening to the machines now. Or we're going to start listening to the scientists now. They automatically try and equate that with previous systems that have come before, where the kings used to tell you what to do, and the government tells you what to do, and the priests tell you what to do. So I think, but with trade free, it's different. You don't have to be somebody, you can be anybody. And anything you want, do it trade free. Don't have to do it all the time if you can't, but do it little. You're already doing something, which is good.
So if we were to like take it from a bit of would it to have an audio of that video?
Yeah, give me 1 sec.
It's an interesting video. Because I want to discuss about something.
Okay.
Let's see. If the audio goes through, maybe. If not.
Oh, you know what it is? It's my microphone has commandeered the desktop audio.
Okay, no problem. I can display the video. So you can share in the chat or whatever. So it's a short video with Jacques Fresco, where Jacques says something like, explains about money, and he's like, okay, basically says the money is just a form of trade. he says, it's we have this kind of, it's a representation, of course. It's not like Jack has to confirm this, but I want to say that I think Jack understood this idea very, very well, that money is just a form of trade. But I feel like it's just that he didn't live too much in this for too long in this kind of society, to see cryptocurrencies, to see social credits, to understand that focusing on money, it will blind you in one eye, and it will make you myopic in the other eye, because you will not see the other emerging trades, like the influencer marketing, the social credits. The social credits will become, I bet they will become so huge, and they have nothing to do really with money. You will have to do it with the ranking system based on whatever you do. So I think that, in a sense, I feel like Jack Fresco, like I agree with Jack Fresco entirely in this sense. I think he got it, he got the idea, and I think we agree upon that. But the focus remained, as far as I know. And let me give you some background. So I worked with the Venus Project closely for 3-4 years. I managed their online magazine for many years, and I was writing articles and also submitting them to Jack and Roxanne. They were very, very happy for several years. They were like, we had a great relationship, and I've seen, I think, everything that's available with TVP. I've read pretty much everything that was available. Even Roxanne sent me the things that they have for paid. They're not accessible for everyone, so she sent me for free all of the lectures and so forth. So my understanding of the Venus Project is based on that, and I feel like they still remain with the focus on the money. And that creates it's a problem, because you don't even have a starting point. If you only talk about money, I don't even care the solution, because then you start, I think, with the wrong enemy inside, with the wrong problem inside, because you become blind to the other trades. So what do you guys think about this? Because to me, that was the realization, like I explained. It was a realization that, okay, the monetary system, it's a huge, massive fucking problem, but so many other trades are emerging so fast. Because when I made TROM documentary, if you look at TROM documentary, the biggest part is the problem, is the monetary system. That's like 10 hours or something, like, or 8 hours to emphasize this is the fucking problem, So what do you think about this kind of, the fact that I feel like not only Venus Project, but others are still not getting this kind of trade, and sometimes they say, money and trade are the problem. Like, why do you put money there? Is trade is just one form of money, is just a form of trade.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hi, Yuri.
Okay. All right. Maybe my connection might be a little bit problematic, so you tell me. But the impression I've got is that they are stubborn with the term. So that's the impression I've got, because all the material I've seen, there is no form of trade, and they explicitly say no barter, no trade of any kind, but they focus on the monetary system. Yeah, and to me, that's a big problem as well. I go like, how? The problem is trade, any kind of trade, but you keep focusing on the using the word monetary system. It's not the monetary system. That's just a layer of more problems, a layer on top of trade. But I have the impression that it's just stubbornness. They're just stubborn and don't want to change. Same with the term resource-based economy. To me, it's a very unfortunate term, because that really indicates the economic system. Immediately you think, okay, it's an economy and it's in the website. Just read that. Okay. You want to go for confusion because you don't want to change the term. Okay. So to me, it seems like it's just ignorance on their part. But I have the impression that they understand, and Jacques understood, that no form of trade, that any kind of trade, but again, that's my impression from all the material I've seen. And I didn't have access to the paid stuff, but I pretty much watched all the available stuff as well. Now, with other projects, I haven't seen any, actually. Do you have any examples? I haven't seen people talk about, maybe the zero marginal cost, but it's closer to the problem as the Zeitgeist movement is very related. Do you have names?
Yeah, there are good projects out there which are very educated. Like you can see, there's one website called themoneytruth.com, he basically outlines his work. He puts out educational material and all that. He outlines the monetary system, how money works, how banks work. And with Money Truth, their objective is basically to educate people on basic finance, basic financial education, right? So with that, they're doing a good job. But like you're saying, every time you go after one of the symptoms, you become very focused with just that. And you were sort of involuntarily under this pressure to sort of fit every other argument into this one, into your own approach. You don't really have to do that. If you fundamentally ask the question, okay, there are so many different kinds of problems. What is the root of all these problems? You go there by simple deduction. You will get to trade. It's that one behavior that human beings have. It's trade. It's how we engage with the environment. We've gone from being people who used to use trade for just exchange to being transactionally minded when it comes to every single thing. Like Theo was saying, if you take away money, it's not going to stop all forms of trade. Case in point is that apparently now a lot of YouTubers are a thing now. I didn't know that. Okay, I don't consume YouTube like that. But recently there's been a rise of parody channels and people who make political satire and other things. So there was this one group locally in my local YouTube. They started making fun of everybody, especially the local film industry and everyone else. And then they made fun of a YouTuber. Now that YouTuber supporters, they came on their channel and they started, giving these guys a hard time. How can you say this about somebody who's worked so hard to get 1.5 million subscribers? So just because you got 1.5 million subscribers, you're supposed to respect you and not say bad things about you. It's that kind of trade, which I don't agree with. It'll happen anywhere. The moment that you... No, go ahead.
And I want to say that because Hugo was asking about what kind of organization. So that's what I was trying to do. And I wrote a book for, actually, I was a TVP back then. I was TV magazine. I wrote a special book, The Money Game and Beyond. And I said, I want to understand the monetary system in detail. So I started to analyze. It took me a year or so to analyze the monetary system. And first thing I realized is that, of course, this thing with trade. I then, halfway of the book, I started to talk about trade because I was like, there's no point talking about money anymore because it's trade and there are so many forms of trade. It feels arbitrary to focus on the monetary system, even if it's so big today, because it's going a bit sideways, pushed by cryptocurrencies and other forms. And then I said, what kind of ideas were out there to organize the society in a better way? And I went from socialism, I went to communism, I went to technocracy, I went to metabolism in Japan, I went to Buckminster Fuller. And I think that they kind of had the same enemy. They said, at least, socialism and communism, they said, this materialism, this money-oriented society and so forth, it's fucked up. So we have to change the environment. We have to let people have more leisure and so forth. Technocracy was something like TVP is talking about in terms of let's leave engineers deal with decisions and experts. Fuck off those politicians. Fuck them. They know nothing. And they became a bit bigger in US and so forth. They had all of these plans. Buckminster Fuller, the same. He said we should solve problems with technology. Metabolism in Japan, the same. And I realized that for one, they still focus on the money, technocracy, as far as I remember. They said, because they say, I think we know. They define the problem, okay, a bit, not that good maybe, but okay, let's say they define the problem good, but they say we know how to. We need to put engineers there. We need to do this. We need the socialism, the Robert Owen, I think it was. And I felt when I was running this, for one, I felt that TVP is not that original, and I don't think it's a problem with that. Okay, if you look at those, and I explained the book quite well. I gave you some examples from the technology to the ideas. But that shouldn't be a problem, okay? That doesn't matter. We don't care if it's original or not. But second, what I realized is that such people, they think that they can organize the society somehow. They almost like they don't understand that society we live in is made of billions and trillions of parts. So you cannot hoard people it's almost like hoarding 7 billion cats and you want to train them. You cannot do that. We have so many layers in this society. And then I realized that maybe this is not a good approach to think so top-down in a sense. I know that Jack Tosco was saying TVP is not a top-down approach or bottom-up, and I will talk about that. But I'm saying if you have this approach, because I've seen groups right now, many groups are these resource-based economy clones. And they say that they get inspired by TVP and they say, we have the plan. We have a much better plan. We want to build this kind of city that is a resource-based economy. No, they say, others say, no, we have a better plan. We should build this like kibbutz communities, like in Israel and so forth. And they fight over like different kinds of ideas of how the world should look like. And in my view, from what I know about the world, this is not how you can change the society because it's so complex, the society. And I will show you like what we think about in terms of changing the society because it's not this kind of approach.
Yeah, if I may add, I actually don't look at those, even TVP, I don't look at resource-based economy or these terms and socialism, communism. I really am interested in the mechanism. What is the mechanism that produces a particular output, particular result that we want? Or what are the mechanisms that produce a particular output that we don't want? And let's change that. And so, I look, okay, even a resource-based economy, they go like, okay, resource-based economy, again, it's a umbrella term that means so many things, but the economic system, many societies in the past were resource-based economies, but I mean, they were very primitive in some ways that we, consider to be primitive. We don't want to live in that society, most people, I guess. So we want to have technology, we want to have, food for everyone, we have 7+ billion people. So how do we produce a system that allows us to do what we want, that don't force us to work, on things we don't want to work, and provide for us a path that enables, you to unleash your best potential, and it's healthy, there's no wars. How can we produce? And then I look at the mechanisms. What are the ways that we can produce that? So these terms to me, I mean, I don't want to live in an island if it's a resource-based economy. I want to, build a society that makes all of these problems obsolete, and that's, to me, more interesting. So I completely void, for me, these terms. I go, okay, you came with the term, but what is the mechanism? Show me the mechanism. That's, to me, more interesting, What is the plan?
Do something trade-free. It's just that simple. Just do it.
I agree with you, and I think it creates confusion. Even if TVP says that we have a definition, other people say we have a definition, other people say we have a definition. What is a resource-based economy? And when I was working with TVP and I was writing articles, I don't think I ever mentioned the resource-based economy because I knew that is going. What is that? For me it was an idea about how the future could look like and why resources are important. Of course, I agree with such things, but I wanted to avoid confusion because people, every time that I talk to people about the resource-based economy, they imagine that is like exactly like we want to just go back to nature or something like this. It's about resources and it's about how to grow food and stuff like that. And there are groups out there who got inspired by TVP and they create a resource-based economy, a local resource-based economy. I think it creates confusion. And I'm not sure it's TVP's fault or not. I don't care. But what I care is the fact that I don't think you can imagine a system, how the world should look like, and explain it. It will always have billions of holes in it. You can never explain it properly. That's why I migrated from that to something that I will explain more in detail later on.
So, Theo, do you think the reason we have these problems? Sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. So, Theo, so I have a question for you. When you say that we will never be able to explain the larger system because we will always have plenty of holes, do you think it's because it's some sort of let's say cognitive limitation? Because let's say, for example, we cannot imagine exponential functions. We can imagine and we can visualize linear functions. Something is, say, this big. I can imagine how it would be maybe if its length was twice as long or if its breadth was twice as long, but not if its area was twice as much. Is it something like that? Is that's the reason that we can explain individual behaviors, but we just cannot fathom the exponential effect of collective behavior?
I think that the society is so complex that, like, imagine I like to make analogies. So imagine the internet. Imagine that we want to invent the internet now. This is our microcosmos. Is the world that we want to invent. It's like we are trying now to also imagine the websites and the comment section,
Right.
and to imagine what video files could be more efficient for this internet, for streaming. You cannot imagine all of that. All of these things are emergent. What you can imagine at best is like connecting people from all around the world, because they are so far apart. We should connect them in a way that we call this the internet. And there are many kinds of protocols. The email has one protocol. I think the websites have one protocol. This has one protocol, and so forth. So in that sense, I think we can only imagine the internet, but we can never imagine like Wikipedia or a search engine or me, whatever. I don't think that's why I think it's a problematic thing when you try to imagine the internet, the metaphoric internet. You can only say
Right.
we have a problem of communication between people, guy A and girl B, and how to connect them with computers. That's the best that we can do, and improve this, and then leave it emerge. Like, it will emerge, websites will emerge, videos will emerge, file formats, programming languages, and so forth. The same thing I see with the society. Instead of saying this is how the society could look like, oh, this is like a library where people can borrow stuff, this is how the transportation should look like, I would say we have a problem. This kind of trade makes people behave like jerks, and we should take that away. And we should create like trade-free goods and services, but I don't say what. I don't know what. It's like open source. I'm like, we should create more open source software, but I don't know what. I'm not suggesting anything. I'm just saying open source software. And this will push the proprietary software away, and will create good behaviors, and will create good projects, not all the time, but most of the time, probably. And that's, I think, the better approach, rather than imagining the internet or another world, a different kind of society.
Right.
But isn't that a layer that you can talk about? Like open source, you define this concept, and okay, I'm not saying specific projects, but open source, this mechanism of development and distribution and access. And what if we say, okay, public libraries, maybe it's not libraries, maybe it's a whole different system. Products come out of the ground, they come, you don't have to go to any place, but not specific, but automation. We can say automation, and we produce, we extract automated systems, extracting, producing, transporting, and telecommunications. I mean, the switchboard, the telephone switchboard of the past. People were in the line switching things around, and now it's automatic. So there's a machine doing that, and people were not necessary. So what if we think of the infrastructure, and then what happens on top of that is to be seen.
It emerges. That's what you were saying, Jitel.
It isn't even open source. It's confusing when they call it open source. It's actually the core idea is like non-proprietary, because there are so many open source licenses that it's a complete mess if you go into that world. So it's almost like a reaction, like we say, like trade free. We don't know exactly what trade free means, but we kind of know the core of it, the idea of it. Like, I make a software and I don't ask anything in return. I don't take your data. I don't want anything. No. So that's it. The world doesn't work in these kinds of exact measurements, absolutes and so forth. It works it kind of works okay, kind of works better. Like the open source kind of works, kind of does good things. Not always, but most of the time.
I think that's very encouraging, because it means that it can always be improved upon.
That's what this is another thing. It's interesting, because Jack was always saying, these cities that you see here that I designed, I hope, I've seen videos of Jack saying, I hope that in the future you won't see that kind of cities, because this are old models. I made them several years ago. If you want to build some new cities, you will have to change the design. He said that all the time, like, throw away my designs, something like that, because they're outdated. And I think he tried to explain, he explained many times that society is always evolving. And he gives the example that you cannot create the best laptop or the best camera and so on. But I think this thing with trade, it's even more interesting in this regard, because that there can never be a pure trade-free anything. People will always bitch about stuff like, oh, you provide trade-free food, but I have to go from here to there. I have to work like 2 hours. It's not trade-free for me. So that pushes every trade-free system to improve a bit.
Yes.
For example, one simple example that is very useful. if you make an operating system, but you forget about the blind people, it's a trade for them, but you may not realize that because there are not many blind people in the world. And blind people will say, but it's not trade free for me. And maybe it will push you to make that operating system available for blind people as well. So it pushes that operating system a bit more, a bit more, a bit more, a bit more, and others will complain. And it's an always moving target. It's a beautiful way of looking at it in that sense, in a practical way.
But wouldn't you think that maybe the reason for someone not thinking of blind people is because they were looking for the big market, and so it's trade again because let's make lots of money and make this cool operating system people can use and do things. And I mean, not necessarily the only reason. Lots of people did it because they found it to be fun and useful, but maybe, and I know that a lot of projects do provide some assistance for blind people, for not blind people, for people with certain disabilities. So even blind people with sounds and things like that. But does it all come to trade again? That the mindset puts us on developing, and also the secrecy, because people develop these things at these companies, and maybe they don't get the input from blind people because they're not participating. They're not participants in the design, or they have no voice. So, but if we have a trade-free society, people are invited to contribute, and the projects are available, accessible, like an open source project, then we have the chance. So not the, again, coming back to the trade system again.
But I don't think it's even like important what was the reason or what led them there in terms of like we only care if is this a trade-free service or good for me or not, and whatever push them. But you may say let's make it even more trade-free in that sense. I don't know what pushes some people to, let's say, not implement the thing for blind people or whatever. But that's the beauty here, because what I'm talking about is like you should create like trade-free goods and services, but I don't care how. Like the open source, I explained this. The open source. I don't care if you use a Windows machine to create that open source software. No one cares in the open source world, about such things. They're not so religious, and that's how it works because you put less barriers, less stopping point in front of them. You say we only care for this software to be open source. I don't give a fuck if you are paid by some company. I don't give if it's open source. That's what they care, and that's what we should care. That's how I see it. And this way, you allow for more people to get involved. Because, for example, if I have a company and I provide trade-free food, but I still have a company, but I provide trade-free food. It's my thing. I'm Bill Gates, whatever the fuck. That's good. I think that's a great. You help people. People will get some food in return. And because you don't put barriers, I think it allows for this idea to grow, even in this society, grow bit by bit. And for others who are here who didn't talk, you can talk whenever you want.
Bobby and Daniel, you can just say hi. Hi, Bobby. Hi, Daniel.
Hello.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for inviting us here. Yesterday I had a small discussion with UTO, and over the trade. Now I have not had the chance to go over all of TROM's works. By the way, I guess I should do a small introduction. And Daniel, if you could, please. Are you like? But yeah, so me and Daniel are from the Venus Project. We are persons of contact in the Venus Project. Although I will have to start by saying that anything that we say should not be taken as the official message from the Venus Project. Having said that, I believe, firstly, that we agree on mostly all things except for some differences in definition. I didn't get the chance to listen to everything that you guys were talking about before we joined, unfortunately, but I want to refer to this leap, the idea that the Venus Project wishes to make some sort of a magical leap from where we are now to a full-blown resource-based economy, a functional resource-based economy. Now, of course, that is not feasible. You cannot go from one place to the other overnight. It would have to be done. There would have to be a lot of stuff done in the interim that to help us transition from here to there. For example, farms. Small micro resource-based systems that will allow us to move from a full monetary economy to a resource-based method. So that is where we come from, and I just don't want it to appear as if the Venus Project proposes some sort of a magical leap from where we are now to where we wish to be.
Yeah, I guess. Thank you for clearing that up. I mean, personally, I always suspected that you were not suggesting something magical, that there must be some system that you guys are trying to envision. What is that when you say a resource-based economy? Who or what is taking stock of resources? Figuring out what's the linkage between these resources. And
okay, so how? So the question is, in a fully functional resource-based economy, or during a transitional period from here to there?
We might have lost this connection.
Yeah, but what I will ask, and from what I'm familiar with the Venus project, when you say from here to there, what is there?
There is a full resource-based economy, right? But from here to there, obviously, there would have to be a lot of small steps taken because, as you said before, the world is very large and very complicated, and there are a lot of smaller systems that rely on the larger economy. Like we were discussing yesterday about the Israeli kibbutza. An Israeli kibbutza is, in my view, a micro resource-based economy. They manage themselves by trading labor for access. There is no exchange of money per se. So from here to there will have to be smaller steps taken to take smaller segments of the economy and turn them into resource-based systems until we someday reach a full resource-based system. So that is what I mean, and I hope that answers the question.
But no, my question was not because before you talk about any kind of transition, and I fully disagree that there really would be any transition towards anything, and I will explain more. But before you talk about the transition, you have to explain where do you want to go. Like, what's your goal that you want to achieve? Like, what is this resource-based economy more exactly?
The application of science and technology towards the social system, towards solving social problems. And whereas in the current economy, we try to, firms that try to achieve higher profits, in a resource-based economy, we would be achieving increased public health.
So it's like technocracy in a way?
Yes, I suppose you could say that.
And why do you think technocracy failed, for example, to reach a bigger audience or to implement something?
Why does any system fail? I don't know. That's a very complicated question to answer, but all I can say is what we try to achieve is creating small transitional steps from where we are now to where we need to be. So by focusing our economy on not on increasing profits, but on increasing public health.
So, because that's what where I changed a bit maybe the interpretation, maybe the view from the Venus project is what is the problem? Because if you want to, even if you have a definition for where you want to go, it means that you want to leave from this place because there is a problem. So what is the problem more exactly? What do you see is the problem in today's world?
Well, what I see as the problem is resource distribution. Now, you call it trade. I think we're talking about the same thing when we say resource. When we use the word trade and resource distribution, the problem is the resources are not going to where they need to be. So, if I start a business today and that business sells fruits, my objective will be to increase profits by selling as many fruits as possible. I'm not going to be concerned with making sure that my fruits go to where they need to go to feed the hungry. My intent will be to increase profits by selling as many fruits as possible to who can afford them. Our objective is to change this economic system into something that does not seek, that instead of focusing on profit, it will focus on increasing public health by distributing resources to where they need to go. As far as method of distribution, that is again a different question. It would be very, very difficult for me because I'm not clairvoyant, so I can't say what the future is going to look like, only what it is that we are trying to achieve.
When you say that the resource distribution is very unequal in this world and it's very like it goes to a few rich people, and I completely agree with that. But isn't that because we live in a trade-based society where people have to trade those, and this kind of system pushes this kind of behavior of hoarding resources or pushing them somewhere else? Do you think that is a result of the trade?
Yeah, I agree. We're in agreement about that.
So then you see, that's why I'm saying I focus more on trade than on resources, because focusing on resources mainly, you forget about other kinds of trades. Like, for example, how science educators are more inclined to make clickbait videos, or news organizations are more inclined to make clickbait news, and all of these massive things like citizenship, where China is forcing social credits into people, or cryptocurrencies, when people want to represent not only resources but also skills, people's skills, and they can buy people's skills to build a website or to do whatever. And I feel that if we put it resources, if we focus on the resources, we kind of get blind of such things, and we push the idea towards more like resources themselves. I agree with you, but I think it's incomplete. What would you say?
I would say again, we are in agreement. When you say trade and I say resource distribution, it's really the same thing. It's the same problem. So when I think that's why I think we're just arguing over definition. Again, when the people that do the clickbait videos for education to provide educational resources, the same thing as the example I alluded to earlier with selling fruits. Their objective is to increase profit, increase the amount of audience that they have, not sending their resource to where it's most needed. So yes, like we are in agreement about that. The objective here, the objective that we all want, whether it's yourself or myself or anyone else that is concerned with these problems, is to send resources to where they need to go, not to who can afford them.
Daniel, if you want to.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
I think your mic is muted.
I apologize. Yeah, okay, it's back.
Yeah, he's back.
Right. So yeah, and pretty much my goal from the start was to show that in talking to you guys is to show that there is not much of a difference between all of us, whether it's the Venus Project or TROM, the Zeitgeist Movement, or any other organization. We are all trying to achieve the same thing. And I fear that by using different logos, by appearing to be different groups, we alienate people instead of bringing them together. And what we ought to be focused on is unity and bridging any differences that we might have between ourselves. So, and to not let that get in the way, because ultimately we are all seeking the same thing.
I agree with that, and I think the only reason that I felt like we have to push it in a different direction is because I felt like this kind of, for one, focusing on a monetary system, like Venus Project focuses so much, and Jack Fresco was actually talking about the trade and barter and money, and he was talking about all that. I feel like if you don't focus too much on that, on the other forms of trade, and you focus on money, I realized that at TVP, when I was at TVP, I realized that people come to you with solutions like, cryptocurrencies. We have a different kind of measuring system. What if we make some farms and you give away your time, like 2-3 hours a day, and we give you food? And even Roxanne, I know then when we wrote articles, I had to like debunk this kind of things, because TVP is not about that, and they agree, of course, they agree with such things, that those are not systems of going beyond money, politics, and war, whatever. So one thing it creates confusion if you don't focus exactly on what the problem is here. So stop talking about money and talk more about way to include those. Okay, one. Second, the thing that TVP is talking about, the resource-based economy, I could never, ever, ever understand the details of it, because the more I read about it, the more I realize that there are a billion holes left. And of course it's true, because you can never imagine how a society might look like, from the clinical trials in healthcare, from distribution, like what about entertainment, what about this? There are billions, trillions of parts. So even if you want to provide a model of how the society will look like, it will always be a myopic model. It will always be like a cartoonish model of the future. So that's why I don't like to focus on that in the sense that it's literally like a solution that could be implemented. I want to focus on that, and I always focus on that as an inspirational thing. Like, look, from a technological perspective, what could be achieved? But of course, it's not going to look like that, because these are outdated models, these are incomplete models, and so forth. That's why I felt the need to move away from what TVP is talking about, and maybe that's why we use different words here. Not because we want to be different, but because I feel that using those kinds of words and those explanations are incomplete and will create confusion. That's why I did what I did.
Okay, so I will just want to say about the first thing that you said. Oh, I'm sorry, Daniel would like to speak.
Yeah, go ahead, Daniel. I think his mic is on mute. Can anybody hear Danny?
No, I can't hear anything right now. I hear it when he takes it off, but I can't hear him talking.
If you use a browser, Daniel, try to make sure that you allow for the microphone to be used by the browser. Sometimes it happens. If not, install the Jitsi app on your computer if you have, and try the Jitsi app, please.
Right. So while Daniel is getting the mic, yeah, I want to talk about again what you say about the future is not going to look like the designs that we've seen with the fresco buildings. Of course, no one is clairvoyant. No one knows what the future is going to look like. And I wouldn't want that to be like a sort of a crutch or something that pushes people away because they see it as sort of like a fantasy. It is true that a lot of those grand designs are only a vision of what the future might look like. It's not what the future will look like.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with these designs. I'm an architect and I see them every day, and they're inspirational. They're beautiful. And if they're saying they are inspirational. So you also have to understand that these are, I'm pretty sure the Fresco says this himself, like you have said it before, you can chuck out those designs if something better comes up, right? So why don't we focus on giving people the tools to build what they want instead of telling them what exactly they have to build?
Certainly, I see nothing wrong with that. With giving people the tools they need. For example, I like to use this personal story. A long time, my disposition about life and economics was very different before I got the knowledge and the information that brought me to where I am today. So of course, like, I appreciate what TROM does by providing educational resources to others, what the Venus Project does, what the Zeitgeist movement does. In my view, we should try to bridge differences by ironing out all of these differences in definition, and hopefully, arrive at a more unified view of what we want to do and what we want the future to look like. And Daniel, I think your mic is working.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. Hi, Daniel.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hi, Tino. Hi, everyone else. Hi, Bobby. Well, first, let me just say that, Tio, I don't know if I made that clear in the past, but you probably know from our emails, I always appreciated the material that you shared online. It was definitely part of the things that I studied before, and it was, part of my growing as well. So I just want to personally thank you for that. Make sure everybody knows about that as well. So for now, I'll just follow what you guys are going and what you guys are talking about. I'll just jump in on another question when it's, proper.
Okay.
Okay. what I wanted to say is that even like Jack, we hear Jack saying like what pushes people to work together, to work together, and it's usually sometimes, or usually it's a common problem. They have a common problem. They have like if an asteroid will come and destroy the Earth, probably China and Russia and America, they will cooperate to deflect the asteroid. And that's I think that's true. And if you look at the history, like I presented in the book, if you look at the germ theory of disease, if you look at transportation, if you look the proprietary software, if you look at all kinds of problems that humans had, what united them was this problem itself. And they had a problem, a common problem, and then they worked with many solutions to get rid of this problem. But even today, if you look at the germ theory of disease, they had this problem like germs, the little creatures that make people feel sick. Okay, even today we have this problem, but it's remediated because they come up with vaccines, they came up with sanitation, they came up with many ideas and many implementations. And I feel sometimes TVP or other people around TVP give me the impression that they have they want to showcase a model of how we can get rid of the microorganisms if that was our problem. They know how to do it, and they want to prove to us. While I think the best way is to say, okay, microorganisms are the problem, and then you let everybody like come up with solutions. And TVP can be one solution out of many solutions. Do you think that TVP is just one solution out there, or is the solution out there to this problem? And if you agree with this, I think actually what I want to point out before you answer that, just keep that in mind. I want to say that I don't think we agree fully on the problem. I think Peter Joseph says the market system. I think we kind of speak about the same thing, but I feel like they make it complicated. Why don't you say like market systems are a result of trade? The problem with resource distribution are a result of trade, because if we didn't trade and we were forced each other to get in this competitive environment, we will not push the resources here and there. Okay, scarcity is not the problem, because scarcity, it's like you look at YouTube, it's full of videos. Okay, but they are still trading. They trade their data, your data. They trade attention and so forth. So scarcity is a problem, but it's not encompassing. Same with ownership and so forth. So I want, first of all, for people to understand what is the problem. And if they understand what is the problem, we are going to cooperate, all of us.
Bobby, can I jump in instead of you on this question?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Again, Theo, thank you for the opportunity to have me here today. I appreciate all of you guys for allowing me to speak. So I do agree with you when you say that usually a common goal is what get people to work together. I think probably all of us here can probably give a personal example of when we were around other people, whether family, work or otherwise, that when there's usually a common goal, we tend to reunite as, as biological people or animals, whatever we want to call it. Regarding problem, Teal, I definitely hear you where you're coming from. Seems to be several organizations try to see what the problem is coming from, but you probably, I would risk it, and I would probably say that you would agree with me if you say that I don't think any problem anywhere for anything that's related to human interests can be simplified to one thing. We are very complex, and I learned this from your material. We are very complex, and whether if it's trade, if it's money, whatever it is, whether if it's even ourselves, as we deal with people, while we talk to friends or family, teachers, whatever it is, I think all of our problems are very complex, and trying to reduce it to one thing, I think would be scientifically dangerous to say. What do you think about that, dear?
I think that the oversimplification, it's maybe you understood it wrongly. For example, I wrote the Origin of Most problem book, and I used the word most for a reason there. And I'm not saying this is what creates all of the problems. I'm saying what TVP is saying. I'm saying what Jack Fresco is saying. Like money, this monetary system, and there are like tons of videos even with Jack saying that money is creating this perverse behavior, this perverse like environment, this competitive environment, and that creates people to behave very badly. That's why Venus Project focuses so much on the human behavior as well, to showcase that the environment pushes human behavior. They do that for a reason. They do that to showcase that this environment of the monetary system, they too reduce it to a monetary system. And I think you can reduce it to this monetary system because we can define what the monetary system is. And I think you can define the same way what trade is, roughly, but we will provide you with a better tool other than just throwing away multiple kinds of definitions out there, like market system and the money and barter and the social credits and so forth. Instead, we use that for a reason, because it simplifies things, but it also can be defined properly, what we kind of mean for trades, and you understand that is not the perfect definition. It will never give a perfect definition. It's something that open source does. What is open source? No one knows exactly, but we roughly understand that. And if we do the same with this kind of common enemy, if TVP had the mental had a courage to say that monetary system is the problem, if they had the courage, they can make just a tiny step ahead and be like, okay, it's trade, because monetary system is just a subset of trade. So we do the same kind of things in terms of simplifying the enemy here.
Yeah, I definitely follow what you're saying. It's definitely a very point. I guess just in addition to what you're saying, I would just mention that I think probably all of you have seen videos of Jacques Fresco talking, and he probably, if you guys remember when he says, not exactly the word here, but it was something to the effect of any kind of barter, which means any kind of trade, any kind of, just the fact that I'm here, if I say, hey, Tio, I'll pay you $5, or I'll do whatever, or I will do this thing for you, I'll fix this, you're sealing your house, as a form of trade, would never be what we're trying to achieve here. It seems like everyone would agree. I'll say right. Everybody shakes hands probably.
Here's a really simple thought experiment. If you have to say, I will do this for you, right? And just end it there, that's not a trade. I will do this for you with the expectation, and anything that follows that is then a trade. And that's what leads to most problems.
So I'm sorry, I don't know who was talking.
Srinivas.
Me.
Okay, well, sorry about that. I didn't know. I felt like I was interrupted, but it's okay. What I was just going to mention about what Tio said was, yeah, we can definitely reduce it to trade. That's one thing, but I think most of you probably agree that when we're talking about us as human beings, trade definitely generates a lot of things, but we also need probably human connection. I think all of you here probably at least have a mother and a father, at least biologically speaking, in order to be alive. So you probably feel the need to connect to other people. You probably feel the need to have friends. You probably feel the need for a lot of other biological things. So going back to that complexity, we can spend the rest of the few hours we had here just talking about all the personal needs that we each individually have. But in terms of societal things, yes, Tio, yeah, I definitely follow you, like most of your material, that trade seems to be one thing we can simplify to make it easy to understand.
It's like I think of something better.
That was my point. I definitely agree with you. I like how it's going to. I need entertainment too. I mean, maybe I need music. Maybe I need some fancy food. Maybe there are human societies and relationships and so forth are very complex. That's why I'm saying that in this society overall, if you look at it, most of it is based on this kind of trades. You have to give something in return, else you kind of don't get in this world. You have to give. That's why you go to work. That's why we get confused a bit because of this currency called money, and people say, "Oh, we do this for money." Well, you don't do. You do this for the stuff that you get in return, of course. I completely agree with you, and I'm like in the sense that it's complex, and if I only focus on this, I ignore other things. But I feel like if you focus on this, you focus on so many problems that it's worth it. It's worth it to separate it in something new. That's why I created a tradefree.org website separated from TROM. TROM is going to discuss about trade-free, but it's going to discuss about human behavior, it's going to language and so forth. I just want to separate this so that people get a simple concept in their heads so that they can do something with it. Because when I was at TVP, for example, sometimes, and I hear that from many people, I don't know what to do. I don't know exactly what to do. Maybe I will get involved. I will help with a website. I will help with some things here. I will help with education. But with this trade-free, I think you give people something to do. Like you feel like you promote the idea of trade as a source of problems because you say, okay, I'm creating trade-free goods and services. and you also create something. Like we created like an operating system as trade-free, or a tool here and there. It gives people a bit of confidence, and you help a bit here and there. I don't think it's going to change the world like that in this way, but I think it was going to push the idea to the society in a way that you also do something rather than just maybe wait for a bigger implementation. So in that sense, I feel like it provides us with some tools that we can do something with them now,
Bobby, you wanted to say something?
Yes. Am I okay? Okay. So I want to allude to something that actually you said earlier, which is you're referring to negative externalities of trade, and that's or negative externalities of improper resource distribution, whatever, however you want to write it. But before, I think what the issue here is that we are oversimplifying things, because the problems are not only technical, they're also cultural. We have cultural problems, and those problems, in my view, are more difficult to solve than technical problems. So that's kind of what I wanted to add on there. And I agree that you should give people something to do, and you should also always work in giving people a path towards transition. So yeah, I think we are in full agreement, unless there is something else. I think the only thing here is how do we implement it, and how do we solve because how we solve the technical problems is really not all that difficult. For example, if a population that does not have water, the technical way to solve that is to put a desalination plant near them. Like for example, if Los Angeles, if the population in Los Angeles increases and we are lacking in water, the technical problem, it's very easy to solve. You simply add desalination plants near Los Angeles, because on the coast, and then you have all the water you need. The problem is a societal cultural problem, and that is, I think, where the focus ought to be. And I agree that you ought to give people and work to give people a path towards transition, something that they can do in the present to help move towards a transition. And I'll yield.
Yeah, to be honest, I see cultural problems as technical problems, because I see all problems as technical, physical, technical, whatever you want to call it. There is a technical solution. There's a way to solve them. For example, the cultural problem, you just change the culture. How do you change the culture? Why is the culture not changing? Because the programs on TV are, showing the same thing. The movies are showing the same thing. People are talking about the same things. The zeitgeist is always, it's always about the same things. So how do we infiltrate the zeitgeist is what I would propose. So if you get a hold of the TV stations and you make shows gradually that changes the values, you can change that. So it's a technical, in my view. Everything is technical in my view. So, but to me, I just wanted to comment that, open source, the only part about open source that works is when it's implemented for businesses, because the idea, what originated the open source, which actually came with the free software movement in '86, and after became open source because they wanted to get rid of the ethical and societal benefits. They just wanted to say, hey, look, open source is better for business because it makes the code better, So again, it's only within the context of trade. So actually what I wanted to say really is, what if the problem is not trade, thinking about it now, and when we say the root cause of the economic system and the dynamics of people involved in the operation, the operating system that we use, what if it's not, there's a layer below that? What if it's really scarcity? Because you gave the example of YouTube, but there's a plethora of videos, there's an abundance of videos, but why are they there? Why so many? Because these people are looking for something they don't have. So there's scarcity in their life. They're looking for something, either that be money, attention, care, whatever, popularity, it's something they don't have. So there's scarcity in that sense, you know. So what if it really is scarcity? Thinking about it now, because I mean, we're really talking about hierarchy. What's the root cause? So the money system, then there's trade system. What if it really is scarcity? Because if we have an abundance of all the things we want, even in a trade system, if we have an abundance of what we want, we don't have to trade. There's no point in trading. It becomes a hobby. If you want to trade yourself for fun, because I already have what I want, I don't need to trade. So what if the problem is, the need for trade, not trade itself? So if we provide everything for everyone, there's no need for trade.
The problem with that is that I used to think the same. Like I used to think that, okay, scarcity is the problem. The problem is that abundance, the word of abundance and scarcity, were hijacked in this world. So in this world, abundance means a fleet of self-driving cars. Everybody has access to them, but they trade their data, they trade their attention. Abundance is seen as Facebook, is seen as YouTube, is seen as all of these services that seems super abundant. And there are many people who work on making an abundant internet, an abundant even tap water. Pretty much, like lots of people have tap water, but they are, because of this trade environment, they want to buy the bottled water. The same with phones. There might be an abundance of phones. People are still, because of trades, because Apple wants to trade, and they want more profit for themselves. It's not like they miss something. Probably they just want more or whatever. Then they push people to trade for the new phone, to trade their money and so forth. So using abundance and scarcity, like scarcity the problem, abundance is the solution, will give you less tools to do something with. While if you focus on the act itself of trading, then you eliminated this kind of confusion with abundance and scarcity almost entirely. Because if there is a fleet of cars, self-driving cars, and it's abundant, and you will see, I mean, you see already with videos and so forth, so many people. You have to read, like Peter Diamandis. He has 2 books on abundance. He's a millionaire, and he's all into this kind of like, let's make an abundant world. And you will see the mentality of rich people, what it means for them to be abundant. If it's a fleet of self-driving cars, it's abundant. You can say it's abundant because we can prove that it's abundant. Everybody has access to. But if there are trades, there will be problems, because they will collect your data, because they will push advertising in your face, because they will change the behavior of people who are going to use those self-driving cars. So they can hijack this thing with abundance and trades very, very easily. That's why I migrated to something else, to the process itself of trade.
I would say that you're missing a point. So bear with me. I don't want to attack you or anything, but correct me if I'm wrong. So I think you're missing a point, because there's an abundance of self-driving cars that collect data, because the people making it don't have an abundance of what they want. How about that? Because if they had everything they wanted, do you think they would be making these products because they're doing it because they want to trade, because they want to get the resources that they want, right? So they're spending the time making these machines that collect your data because they want to get the reward. So what if they already have the reward, and so there's no incentive to even do that?
If that's the case, and that's probably the case, of course I agree with you. But the fact is that you want to create a chain, and you want to fix every part in the chain, and that's a like a utopian vision, like this and that and this and that. I'm focusing on the problem itself. If you have to trade for those cars, then that's going to create problems. Okay, so you have to make trade-free goods and services. Else, if you go with your direction, then it will mean that you have to take care of this layer and this layer and this layer and this layer, because abundance, to achieve an abundance on a global scale, that to me sounds completely unreasonable, and I don't know how to achieve that, through this society. While with trade, you can do it now. You can do it like, I can make a fleet of self-driving cars, even if I lack some other things. I don't have an abundance for myself. Like Doctors Without Borders, those guys, those girls, they don't have enough for themselves, I'm sure. They provide a trade-free goods service towards people. They treat 10 million patients worldwide. So they do a trade-free service to people. They help them, okay? Of course, that's, if you look at trades, then that's a great system, and you can uncover that is great, because you know that there is no profit there to make those people do the job that they do. They're volunteers. But if you focus on abundance, I don't know how you can move. What steps can you make to push the society into an abundant way without getting into confusion, without getting into roadblocks? So what do you say about that?
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Yuri, do you mind if I jump in really quick?
Yeah, no problem.
Sure. Go ahead.
Okay. So let me just start saying, I think both of you guys make a lot of sense. Both of you guys, you two, I think are talking about the same thing and make very valid points. I'm just gonna tell a little story. I don't know where Yuri is from. I know where T is from, but I grew up in Brazil. It's near the equator. And I remember as a little kid, one of the first memories I have was, so I had a need for something. I like to have snacks in the afternoon. And I remember walking from the neighborhood, through the neighborhood. And then my mother used to say, well, if you want something, you got to give something to somebody else. So like Tio says, the idea of trade, right? But I started with the need. I wanted to eat something. And I remember going through some neighborhood because it's very tropical. And if you guys ever been in a tropical place, it's so hot and it's
Sweaty.
fruit and trees grow like crazy. I mean, you put anything anywhere, it grows the next day, almost literally. So again, the idea of abundance. I remember going through a certain neighborhood and there was this huge mango tree. And it was so big and there were so many mangoes that throughout the year, because it's about the same temperatures near the equator, the mango tree had so many mangoes, so many that people, when they would jump on the wall that's next to the tree. I know I did this as a kid. I'll try to get a mango. Sometimes you don't even have to do this because there's so many mangoes throughout the whole year. They would just fall on whoever is going by the sidewalk. Literally, you have to watch out your head so a mango doesn't fall. And they're about this big, so the size of my head. So I started realizing as a little kid, oh wow, if there's a lot of something, I don't need to go ask somebody. And the next thing too that happened is sometimes a neighbor that I didn't even know as a kid, they would just come with this basket of mangoes. They were huge, and then they would say, "Come, take this." And then we would say, "No, we don't want it. We have enough of it." But they would just come. Literally, they want to give it to us. And I thought it was so weird. Why are you giving this to us? I don't want this. We have too many of them. So this little story, I think it talks about what Yuri is saying and what T was saying. Yes, there's a problem with scarcity. T was saying, yes, this abstraction of trade creates a problem. I think it probably restrict the fact that people want to help others or be generous, just give it to others when there's a lot of something. And to the idea of, I think it seems like your question is always, how do I achieve something? How do I get to abundance? How do I get to this? To that question, how to achieve that, I don't know if a conversation with 8 people would work, but I know I work in technology. I don't know if you guys know my background. There are ways to achieve things through logistics. And hardware, through equipment. It's too complicated to say in a few minutes. But I think hopefully this little story gives a little light. But you guys are talking the same thing, and I'm glad to hear that.
But I want to just quickly, and Bobby, then you can just want to clarify something. I think you can have many, even today, abundant services, abundant goods, and still have trades, and there will be a problem. While the opposite is quite rare. Like if something is trade-free, it means that it should be abundant. Else, for me, is not trade-free. It means that I lack access to that. It's not trade-free. I have to either trade or it's a need for trade or something like that. So I think in that sense, I think you can have abundant. Today we have abundant goods and services, many kinds of, but they are not trade-free because they collect all kinds of stuff from you. Yet it's abundant. It's for clothes and so forth. That's why it's so hijacked, this notion. I was completely into that, but now it's so hijacked that I just don't want to use it anymore and it also doesn't give you any kind of tool. Like today we can say, let's make some trade-free goods and services, but I cannot say let's make an abundant what? You don't have any power to do any kinds of abundant goods and services because you lack something, like Yuri was saying, and for you other stuff are not abundant. So it could be a bit tricky if you can. I agree with that. I think yes, scarcity is a massive problem. Maybe in a sense could be the same as trade in many aspects, but I feel like if you focus on trade, you have a better tool, like better tools to do something about this trade, because trade-free means it pushes abundance all the time. Yet an abundance system may not mean it's trade free.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, what I'm thinking is not abundance itself, but abundance of what? So abundance um, of food and water and shelter for everybody. You know, if you, because what I'm thinking is, um, if you have abundance, trade gives you nothing, right? Abundance of everything that you want. So it's relative to what your needs. So let's say we provide for everyone's needs in that scenario. Um, there's no reason, there's no basis for trade because you gain nothing from that. You're trading one to one, you know, exactly one for one. So there's no delta value. So trade is only valuable because you don't have something you want to get that. So, okay, I make this stuff that I don't need or I need less or I already have, and I'll give to you if you give what I want. So if you already have what you want, it's pointless. You know, there's no base. It dissolves the need for it. So,
Yep.
but if you have, so if you have trade, you can still have abundance of stuff, um, but you know, you see the point. You can have abundance in trade of certain things, but maybe it's not the things that enables us to not corrupt in those particular areas. And so, does that make sense?
Well, I don't think so exactly, because the way trade functions is purely based on scarcity, not abundance. Because if there is no scarcity on one end, there is no need. Let's say there is, like, it's like electricity, right? If the difference in electric potential is not there, current won't flow, right? So if there is no scarcity on in one side, there will be no flow, which is in a trade-based system. The only way a trade-based system actually works is by creating scarcity, is by creating these needs. It's artificial. And I agree with the TVP project and every other system and every other project that says that we definitely need a much better system to manage and allocate our resources, much better than this trade system, right? It can be the monetary system or anything else, but even without money, the actual physical money, people will still resort to trade. It's very simple. Keep the same analogy of fruit trees, right? If you have a mango fruit tree, you have a bunch of them. The way trade works is it's not the guy who grows the fruit. It's not the guy who grows who waters the trees. It's the guy who builds the fence around the tree and charges you for getting in and getting out. That's how trade works. Now, he can keep the produce abundant. He can produce more and more, right? As long as somebody is standing there with the intention to trade, there will always be a problem. So we need a better method, a better fundamental idea, a better concept other than trade. Trade has been very useful so far. I mean, it evolved at a time where scientific inquiry was not evolved. It was simply not there, right? That's how barter evolved. And then slowly you got to trade and all its sophistications today. And then it's all those sophistications that are leading to many problems. And that's why you need to change that concept, that fundamental concept of trade. And then you can apply it not only to resource allocation, even to services. Because resources are one thing, they're commodities. What about services?
I don't know how to pronounce your name, but thank you for speaking there. Can I just mention something really quick about what Yuri and Srinivas?
Say it however you like. It's just the name.
Thank you. And Teal, let me just mention how, again, I'll say in two ways, how you guys talking about the same thing. I can also say that you guys really completing each other. I don't know if anybody is noticing this, but it's so nice and amazing. At least I feel really good about this. All of you three talking, really, you guys really completing each other in a really nice way. I think this is a good example of how you put people with good information together, and we're really able to accomplish some good ideas. I know for lack of resources and other means, we can implement some of the ideas we're talking about here, but I just want to mention how you guys are really completing each other, and that's really a nice thing to see. Maybe just a little hint of, the more we work towards one goal, whatever it might be, even if there's a few changes in semantics, it looks really beautiful. We're working together. I just want to mention that. And again,
Plurality is a beautiful thing, man. There's nothing as fun as looking at an entire box of crayons, all the colors, everything.
But can I disagree? So I disagree. I disagree. Here's where I disagree. I disagree that of course we can talk about the same things, and you say maybe semantics. I don't think it's semantics at all. I think this is a better method because you can do something with it. You can say, okay, this software is not rate free. You put the finger on the problem. You can say this service is not rate free. You can put the finger on the problem. Then you can create rate free goods and services. Like you can say Wikipedia is rate free. Even they say you don't read anything to us. You read about Wikipedia. You can do something with this. Well, if I focus on scarcity, I will stay at home and dream about an abundant world, because I will not be able to do much about that unless I inform people about it. Now I can do something with it. I think it's a much better tool, even if fundamentally we talk about problems in terms of the tool, the way that we define it, and the path forward. I don't think it's the same at all. I think it's this kind of trade-free label that you can put on stuff and explain this trade as the source of most problems. Because of it's so simple, and because you can do something with it, that's the advantage itself. I'm not talking about what we describe here. I'm talking about the advantage mostly. What advantage gives this to you? Because of course I would like to live in an abundant world, even though abundance can be sold today. Like I explained, they can sell abundance. It's not a problem at all. You can argue then that because they don't have abundance. Yeah, but what do you imagine now? A world full of abundance? I don't think that's realistic. While here, I don't care how you create trade-free goods and services. Maybe it's a business. Maybe you do it as a volunteer. I don't care. It gives you with a tool. I don't disagree about the problem here. Maybe the more that I disagree is about the advantages that focusing on trade will give to you. And if anyone else that didn't speak, they want to speak, like, please speak. I don't want for all just 3 or 4 of us to speak here.
Okay, there are 3 things. One, because a lot of stuff has happened, and I don't want to just regurgitate things. But so one is the idea that a business is going to stop at some point, or a person is going to stop after they have accumulated X amount of wealth. That's incorrect. Firms exist to increase profit and to cut costs. They're not thinking beings like you and I. They exist for one thing. So there is no point where the firm stops accruing profit. Like it keeps going until it destroys itself and everything around it. The second thing, I think we're in full agreement about something here. So on our focus. So yes, in the interim between now and then, there will be systems of trade. There must be some way for us to apply ourselves and our labor and mental capital to develop a transition and move towards a better economy. So I agree with you there. You can't focus on just this idea, grand idea in the future. You have to work in the interim. You have to work now in order in creating smaller subsystems here and there in order to get to a full resource-based economy. And that includes reaching out to governments, reaching out to individuals, reaching out to business, and all of that to bring them all together and proliferate this idea. So in that, I don't think there is any difference between us except our focus is that maybe some of us focus on the future, and rather than focusing too much on the present. So it's really just our focus. So I think we're all talking about the same thing. We all want to achieve the same thing, and yeah, we should collaborate and work at the present moment towards creating systems that would allow us to reach out to people, to industry, to everyone else, in order to show them that there are indeed ways that in the present that we can help transition from here to there.
But
So
Bobby, I don't see any there. So I don't see any there. I never saw any there. It's no there for me. It's just always now because society is so complex. It was never a transition from horses to Hyperloop. It was a gradual transition. It always happens. Even today, you will see horses used in all kinds of villages and so forth. So I feel like there is no transition. That's why I'm saying we should do something now. And I see the society. This is the society. And I see bad things, and I say extract the bad things and let the society emerge, because they don't have this bad thing that will make them do bad things. Okay, they don't even have this influence, this trade influence. Well, I feel like you're saying that you have to improve to make the society migrate towards something, but I never know what the something is. I never. That's why it confuses me with TVP, because they say to reach a global resource-based economy. I don't know what the global resource-based economy, and I bet everything that TVP doesn't know what the resource-based economy will look like, because it's too complex. It's too complex to imagine such a world. So we never know exactly. So then if you talk about transition, I feel like you push people a bit, you give hopes, you give false hopes, and they may want to transition towards something. You don't know how many times I've got emails for TVP magazine, people about transition. They wait for the transition, and then they move apart from TVP because they say TVP moves so slowly towards the transition. So I will make a new transition, we will make. And at TROM now, and with this trade free, I don't say anything about any transition. I'm just saying the more that you eliminate trades, the more better goods and services you will create, like Doctors Without Borders, like Wikipedia, like Linux, like open source, like maker spaces, and so forth. I don't know where this will lead. I don't know, but it probably will lead something that's useful for us because of trade-free goods and services. That's what I think I disagree here.
But today there are organizations that are currently working on, as nonprofits, for example, UNESCO and others. But they still exist within this economy, and they're not working towards any future. So when you begin a project, you have to have an end goal in mind. You have to have milestones that you want to reach. And I don't think you could just work in the present without having a plan for the future. So, and it's not false hope. Sure, the buildings look very fancy and very nice and very futuristic, but it's just a picture of what the future might look like, not how it will be. And I disagree that it's false hope. I think it's a vision, and it inspires people to work in the present towards achieving it, or something similar to it. Now, when you say that no one knows what a resource-based economy will look like, technically, yeah, that's true. We don't know what a resource distribution system would look like, what the code is going to look like, how the distribution will take place in detail. But we know that we want to build it. We know that we want to work towards building it, and that is, that's the path we take. So I don't understand the disagreement.
I can clarify.
Yes.
Okay, Bobby, let's consider this. Right? You said that it's not possible to work for something in the present if there are no end goals in the future. Is that right? Can it be said that it's more accurate to say that it's ineffective to work on something in the present if there is no clearly defined goal for the future?
Yeah.
Would that be more? Can you back that up with fact?
Sure. Well, let's say right now I want to open up an office that's going to sell vegetables. Like, I don't know, open up a little farm that's going to sell vegetables, right? And I know exactly how many customers I'm going to have. I know how much output my farm should have, and tomatoes and potatoes and so forth. I can't actually carry out this project if I don't know what the end goal is. Otherwise, I might have too many vegetables and too few people. So a project has to have scope. So that's kind of where I'm coming from.
Sure. Okay. So it's not always necessary then that you have to define the scope of a project based on its end goal. How about you say, don't say end goal. How about you say the first step, right? I wouldn't know. If goals are football metaphors, so let's say the first pass, right? Suppose your first pass in this case is to just eliminate trade in your chosen area of where there are existing trades. What would you say to that? Would that
I'm
be a
sorry.
project that is, let's say that it's not about the end goal, it's about the first pass you make. And the first pass you make is to say that there are existing trades, right, selling potatoes and tomatoes. I am going to make potatoes and tomatoes available trade free. Forget how I'm going to go about it. Are you saying this project is unviable?
No, it's you can make potatoes and tomatoes in the present, but in the let's look at it practically. In the if we were together right now, we were to meet up and say we're going to do a farm and we're going to have tomatoes and potatoes and we're going to sell them. We're going to
Okay.
we're going to need some sort of capital, right? So
Within this system, yes.
yes,
Or you're going to have to sneak a way to get water and resources and seeds into your plot of land, or any plot of land that you can get access to. Correct?
sure.
So the only way to get across all of these trades is if slowly people start making each and every one of these things trade free, right? Which is why it's more important that it's about the first pass rather than the end goal.
Without
May I say something?
Yep.
Sorry, may I say something? I just thought, so if we have an abundance of self-driving cars and they collect your data, that's pretty bad, right? They want to get your data in return. So it's not really about the system, but the results. So, okay, so if I have a trade-free system and I make a product, but that product explodes, there's no trade, but it's pretty bad, right? So it can be pretty bad. I can make a system that collects your data, and I'm not getting the data. It's sending or saving it or sending to someone else. I'm not getting your data. So when I give the product to you, so it's possible that it's trade free and pretty bad for you. So the same applies to the logic of, okay, it's abundant, but it's collecting your data. Same thing seems to apply here, because
No, I
if it's
think
pretty
there is.
bad, why do
I
you
think
want to
that sorry to interrupt you, Huri, but I think there is a gap in the logic, right? When you say it's trade free, let's put it quite simply. The use of these abundant self-driving cars, they would collect the data. It is not necessary for you to exchange that data in order to avail the service. If it is necessary, absolutely necessary, then it's a trade. If the data is collected and the data is used to make the system better, that is not a trade. That's just the way the system is set up, right? What would you
yeah,
think,
but I'm
Theo?
talking about the results. I'm talking about the results. What if it explodes? It's pretty bad. You don't want a trade system that gives you products that explode, because you die. Right? So it's
the
pretty
car
bad.
actually the car explodes? It's a badly made car.
No, let me say I make a product that, let's say, an apple. I produce apples and I make it trade free, but I modified it genetically so that it chemically generates an explosive reaction when you bite it. So you
Then
bite
you've
it,
made a
it's
trade. Then you've made a trade-free biological weapon. If you want something
yeah,
in return for it,
Like, for example, look at the open source, okay? I can make an open source app for ISIS, and I can teach people how to make bombs and how to kill other people. It's open source, okay?
Yeah.
But such things will happen. But mostly they won't happen because people are not incentivized to do that. That's the same. It's the same. Make an analogy with open source. You look at the open source, and you'll see probably most of the software. It's good software and it's used by communities and creates good communities and so forth. Yes, of course, it's not a perfect system. You will see exploding open source devices. So
no, sorry, I'm very
Sorry,
sorry to interrupt, but oh,
yeah,
sorry. There's a delay. I just wanted to say that I've been following many free software projects, open source, and I use many of them. I use Blender for 10 years. I use Python. I use many of them, and it's rare to have good software from the free software movement, from open source, because it's rare. It's not the rule, because people are not getting paid, so they have to focus on
Yuri, I have
jobs.
to interrupt you because you talk about something else. You talk about either motivation or result. Of course, I use Linux for the past 6 years. From Java, I recommend so many apps. Like I make videos, I write books. It's the most stable operating system that probably I had because I had Windows in the past. I can say that the open source software in many regards are even better than the proprietary that I use. But that's besides the point. The fact that people cannot focus to make better, that's a different thing. But you are saying the intention could be to like do something that's bad or so forth with maybe open source. Of course it can happen. Of course it can happen. Yes, maybe they cannot work that much on an open source software because they don't have the resources. So what? It's still something that is better than because it's trade free. It's a free product for poor people who want to take advantage of that without having to pay or to give their data away. So you're talking about motivation, then you're talking about like the possibility to create it better. There are two different things.
No, I'm talking about the results. The reason for the lack of quality in most open source projects is because they have to focus on their jobs. There is a lack of motivation as well, but it's not really what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the quality of the software is mostly pretty bad in most free open source projects.
What do you base
but
that on? What kind of
that's
open
the
source
goal.
What kind of? Because I use open source all the time. So what kind of examples do you mean?
I used to, but we are exposed to the good ones. There's so many. Just look at GitHub. There are many abandoned projects. I was looking for a game engine today. There's open source because I wanted to make a little game as an exercise, and it's 7 years old. So many projects exist, but we hear about the good ones.
It's unfortunate, of course, but those that we have a straight free and they work like open source and they create like an operating system or applications for millions of people, and that's the part that we have to enjoy. We have to focus on that part, and I don't see I agree with you. Then there are abandoned stuff as a result of this being trade free from that part. But so what? You still create most of the open source software. It's still useful and it's still good, and it helps so many. Aaron, maybe you want to talk because you didn't, or Dima, or you guys want to.
Yeah, I just want to add to the results. For example, planned obsolescence. We had that TROM-Cast about it, and the trade system incentivizes companies to produce goods and services who break down after a while. What is my incentive if I produce something trade-free that it gets broken after 2 years? That doesn't make sense. So that's the incentive, yeah. Trade creates a bad incentive for people.
Yeah.
Guys,
yeah.
I have...
We're really many... Sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I have another obligation some capitalism stuff that I have to do. So I have to go soon, but I want to say first thank you for this and for talking to all of you guys. We appreciate it, and I would like to have more collaborative and respectful discussions like this in the future between all of us and other members of different groups, and to not only to discuss these problems and discuss social problems and what we want to achieve in the present, but also to collaborate and to show solidarity between all of our groups, because I believe there are a lot of people who support what we do in the shadows, who might not be official members or anything like that, but we certainly all have a tremendous amount of support, and we ought to come together and continue to have these discussions and reach out to people together to try and bring them forward. Any differences that we might have regarding how we go about doing things, I'm sure we can bridge, and we can see great things in the future. But thank you.
Okay, thank you for participating.
Thank you.
Yep.
Bye.
Come back anytime.
Sorry, before you speak, I just want to say I had to go as well. So sorry, I lost my connection earlier. Teal, thank you again for the opportunity. Thank you, all of you guys. It's great to see some of the faces I've seen before. So I hope to talk to you guys in the future, and best for everyone. Thank you very much.
Yep.
See you later.
Bye, Danny.
Thank you.
See you.
I just wanted to build quickly upon what Bobby was saying, the things that we have to collaborate and so forth. I completely agree, but I feel like if we focus on this trade-free thing, and we don't have even to collaborate with each other. If you do trade-free, like open source is not one organization or many that want to come on the same umbrella. There are many organizations doing their own things in their own way.
Yep.
So I think that's another advantage here of focusing on this trade and then creating trade-free goods and services, and that's what I want to add.
Yeah, and I could refer back to the discussion you guys had about some software or something you were discussing for blind people. Like if you make something trade free, but it's not available for the blind people, and why it's so, is it trade free or not? But I think the motivation for anyone basically make anything trade free, it probably will go from his like personal interest or something like from his passion. So let's say I can create an app for like normal people who can see, and I really don't care about these blind people. But those blind people can tell, it's not trade free. Then if you're blind and if you are concerned about this, just go and make your own. And that's the beautiful thing about all this kind of trade free and open source idea. If you're lacking something, you don't expect someone to make it for you, but actually you've got the tools, you've got the possibilities to create stuff on your own. And it's a completely new mentality. Instead of like consumerist mentality, I want something, okay, who can provide for me? It's like I'm lacking something, I should find, tools and skills, which is actually plenty even today online and for free, to make my own, substitute. And by doing something for myself, later I can share with other people and release it as a trade free. And that's where the power of individuals is coming up. And that's what I see very positive, because a lot of organizations, they concern about the future a lot, and again, about this transition, what you, Tiom, mentioned, but this transition never happened, and people just lacking motivation. And that was the same for me for TVP. Who don't know, I also point of contact of TVP, but recently I did nothing for them because I don't know what I can do there. And I had discussion with you and other people about that too. But taking this idea of trade free, and I can just do something on my own, and I can release books, I can make videos and do a lot of stuff. And also a good point which you mentioned about collaboration. At the end, you maybe not even need to collaborate so much, not because it's a bad thing, it's amazing and it's cool, of course. But you can run the whole project on your own. And I think it's something, maybe it's a new in a way or not, but at least each individual can do something, and I see a lot of positive towards that.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So hi everyone. Probably it's first time I'm speaking today. So I just wanted to say that I really agree with Dima about the possibilities for people to do something, because, for example, if I take example of how I start to programming and do stuff, it was started when I try some proprietary software and I decided that it's not like what I want, or it's lack of the functionality that I want. And all I have to do, I cannot just sit and wait while they do this functionality for me or for anybody else. Probably it doesn't happen anywhere. So I just need to take something, try to understand how they made it, and try to make something else, but with functionality that I want to have it in this software. So this was a push to me to start doing something and not just wait until something happens, or maybe I will die eventually and nothing happens entirely. Well, that, and this was my problem with TVP. And again, I want to say that I agree with and understand everything that they're trying to say, and I agree with most of the topics they have, and I adore Jacques Fresco and all the stuff that they have. But the problem with them is that I, for example, felt some strength in me to do something, to try to help them with something, but eventually everything that I can do is just put some money to them, donate something, and just sit and wait while this resource-based economy is happen to me or everybody else. And what's personally I find very special for me in the TROM project and the trade free, which was released lately, is that this some kind of a tool for me to do something, to really try to like make a difference, sort of. So I of course I can help with donation. Of course I can just read all the books you guys wrote or translate or everything. But what's special here is that I can just take and do whatever I want, just and this probably can help to achieve probably everything, every topics, every problems, every solution we are trying to talk about it, and the TVP guys trying to talk, and Z-Gaze guys, and so on. So and again, I just wanted to say that I agree with Dima. So this is like where some individuals can come along and trying to do something.
Yeah, and that's why I don't disagree with you, Shuri. I don't with it about for example, you made good points about abundance and scarcity. Of course, I agree. I mean, if you create some abundant system, I think that's great. Abundant services and provide abundant food and so forth. I completely agree with that. I wrote about that. I made videos about that. I did Tom documentaries about that. Lots of it. It's just that I think I found now we found a bit like a better way to deal with the same problem, but towards this with this trade free thing, because we can kind of do something. Imagine if you do it with abundance, like an antidote to scarcity. It will be quite difficult. Like, okay, let's create abundant software and let's create abundant food. You can never quite create that because you don't have the powers to do that. But trade free, it's easier. It's like I can go with my telescope and be like, okay, I let you like trade free, like just I show you the moon, I show you I don't want anything from you or whatever. You can do all kinds of stuff, and I understand very well that people say that okay, this is not going to change the society. But I feel like if you keep the goal in mind that trade pollutes this environment, and you talk about that, and you also do a few little things here and there that are trade free, you do both things. You do education and you do something in this world, and it's good for you mentally because you do something, and it's good for other people because you provide something for them, even if it's a little thing here and there. And that's why I migrate towards this approach, because I feel there are many advantages, and I thought a lot about this because I debated in my head so many times, like abundance and or scarcity versus trade, ownership. The people with ownership will say the same. We say that ownership is the problem, because if no one will own anything, it means like it's available for everybody. It's like you don't own that, this don't own that. They have their own arguments, and I hope that we will work towards making this world a little better. But I still, my focus will be on trade free. If anyone wants to focus on anything else and is not convinced, then I don't see the problem.
I can give a short and quick example from my life about abundance, and what I realized that actually like abundant services or goods, it's not that like viable. Sometimes you think it's in abundance, but there are so many things which influence. And so it's like an example from a life, like where I live in Germany, there's like a field with a lot of cherries. And last year it was full of cherries, and no people were collecting them. And they're super sweet and tasty, but just people don't get used to that. They're like Germans are buying them. And so it seems like last year only we collected them. There were so many. And like yesterday we went again because like it's time for the cherries to ripe. They should be ready. And there was none. Like none of the cherries. There's many trees. I know exactly. It's like abandoned field. Nobody collects them. But the things, the last months it was super hot in Germany. Like every day plus 30. So it's like super like a heat wave for months long. And apparently the birds looking for any liquids, they just eaten all these cherries. So what I expect to be in abundance, like this year, turned out it's in scarcity. And it depends not on me, on any other people. It depends on the weather, environment, and other stuff which you cannot predict. So and if we compare, so like right now I went to the field and there was no cherries, and then I have to go to the shop and buy them because I was expecting to have them there. If and that's speaking about abundance. But if we speak about trade free in the same situation, if there would be, I came there and there is no cherries, I would go to any other place, to any other guy who have his cherry tree in his house, or to the shop and just took it for free. If that's such service would be available, so it's trade free. So it's like a quick example comparison between like a trade free and abundance. So sometimes things what we expect to be abundance can be opposite.
For me, it's very difficult to even wrap my head around the idea of abundance, because what do you quantify as abundance? How many is abundant?
Yeah, like as much as everyone needs. I mean,
yeah, but who says that? How do you quantify that?
Probably the amount of people are in region, or like the
so how do you know? How do you know how many cherries a human being needs?
Well, I mean, you can count that. There is some average, average European eats like 5 kilos of cherries each year.
They do, but under what conditions? And then an average is not always as good as, it's not the best number. No, average is like a very shortcut way of doing things. You take the minimum, maximum, and you halve it right down the middle. It's
but that's how all economics work.
I mean, not all economics.
If I may chime in.
No, I'll finish, Yuri. I'll finish, and I promise you will have more to say. Right. So this concept of abundance is a little hard for me to wrap my head around, because it's quantification, right? And then it requires. See, don't get me wrong. The appetite of human beings, let's say that the human aspiration needs to be managed more effectively. One of the tools the tool we have to use is science. Right, we have to use science and applied methods and computing technology to quantify human need for whatever it is, and balance that against what the biosphere can support. I think once these resource-based economy guys figure out that magic RBE token, which is probably a really simple to understand number. It's a combination of many things. Embodied energy versus how fast this thing can be replaced versus carbon neutrality, a lot of these things. If we can give you one single number, we can make that RBE happen. But until then, in the absence of computing technology and other tools that you have to rely to, what is the thing that we all operate on? Human beings operate on habits and behaviors, right? And so if you have something, a self-check, which is kind of like what trade-free is, I think that's a lot more beneficial than talking about the things that will come from it, the emergent stuff that comes from that kind of behavior.
Yeah, well, I would say that there are many ways that you can measure, like signals. For example, I actually thought about this, and I've been meaning to try to make an algorithm that translates that, particular how much resources should we ship to a particular region based on the needs, and the demand, and the amount of people in that area. So because I was thinking, maybe that's something we probably need in a resource-based economy, in a trade-free society, or whatever, is distributing effectively, and efficiently as well. So you don't overshoot, and you don't undershoot. So there are ways. One of the ways is people would try first. So people go in there and you see, okay, a lot of people looking for this product, we don't have enough. Next time we provide a little more. But another way is looking for trends as well. So what they do in like train construction in the big areas, like the metro system, they look for trends of how the cities are changing, how the population is growing, and what the socioeconomic system status, how it's looking to change. So certain areas are rich, but they're getting poorer, and they use those as input to kind of predict. Also, okay, we have these poor areas, they're increasing a lot. We got to build probably, by 10 years from now, 20 years from now, this area is going to be huge, and it's going to, got to make trains for those areas, connect them to the center, because it's too far away from the center of the city, and they will be working those areas. So there are many ways that actually one example that failed actually was GE. They bet on oil and coal, and because of particular trends, they saw that I think fossil fuel was they saw a upward trend, but actually it did go up, but it went down dramatically afterwards. They didn't predict that, so they attached their operations on a bad trend. It was not a sustained trend.
But
so
they got filthy rich off it.
Oh, they lost massively. They lost. They were really big, and now they're way less. They're pretty big, it's still, but they're one of the biggest brands in the U.S. Now they're dramatic. Like I think they lost. They were worth $600 billion and probably under 100 now. But the point is, the companies, they're not stupid. They look for trends and they attach their operations based on these trends, and they succeed massively because they have that knowledge, and governments do that. So I think there are many signals that we can pull from people's usage, demand, and how many people are in the area.
I'm not saying it can't be quantified. I'm not saying it can't be, right? I'm pretty sure it can be. I'm very confident that it can be, because all I'm saying is, as a human being, as an individual human being who is then part of the whole, it's good to have this idea, the larger resource base, and it'll eventually, some form of the resource-based economy will shake out if everything goes well. I'm saying in the interim, the first step, instead of that last goal, the first step that you take is making things trade-free.
I think that what I wanted to, so let's not deviate a lot, because I feel like another problem here with maybe this notion of let's create abundance. It's I've heard many people saying that we can measure resources and this carrying capacity of the earth, and it's like artificial intelligence knowing what resources and how many people can support. Now I think I'm sorry to say that, but I think it's bullshit. Even I was writing about that, but I think it's bullshit, because you never know. Depending on the society, you never know how many. Let's say you have 50,000 tons of gold. You never know, like, how to put it in perspective with what? With today's society, with an imagined society, with what kind of uses, what kind of technology, and what about asteroid minings and so forth. So that's why I stopped caring about resources, because there are other people who care about resources, and there are so many groups in the world who are like measuring resources for Spain and for Europe and see how much they have and blah blah blah. That's why I feel like the focus on trade is more important, because I don't people. You know what? I don't think people need holding hands in this world, like experts. I think there are enough experts in this world who know how to build vertical farms and self-sustainable cities and make great educational content, and you don't have to tell them how to do stuff. You only have to remove that force of trade that makes them deviate from their expertise and deviate from what they're doing. That's what you have to do. The rest, you don't worry about that. That's I think is beautiful about this idea. I don't worry about the, people sometimes ask me, email me like, how do you think entertainment would be in the future? Entertainment, I'm like, what? Who do you think I am? Like, will girls wear makeup? Are going to wear makeup in the future, or how sex is going to be? Or I don't fucking care. I don't care about such things. I care about removing this force of trade and let people do whatever the fuck they want, because they know how to do it. That's how you guide people, not by guiding them, but by taking away the force that makes them go in this direction, that is really bad direction. That's how I see it. It's more simplified, I think. It is more realistic, because I can give you many, many, many examples of where you take the trade away. Things are getting better and better, scientific and better, not always, but most of the time. And I can give you many, many, many examples. That's what I did with the origin of most problems. That's why it took like over 1,000 pages to explain all of that, with many, many examples and hundreds of documentaries linked and so forth.
That settles it.
Let me just say that I completely, I think it's clear that I don't oppose the idea that trade is a big problem, and that it creates most of the problems. My perspective is, when I look at it, is that what creates the need for trade, and it seems to me that it's what comes before what generates it is scarcity, because if we had the opposite, abundance, trade wouldn't happen. So what I'm not worried much about this, oh, it's trade or not trade that creates the problems. I think it's a chain of events. I think we all agree, but we're talking about where is the root, right? And the thing is, to me, it seems like it generates the need for trade.
Yeah, I
Because
guess.
you know that cancer is created by aging most of the time. And I'm saying, okay, trade is like aging here in this case, but you are saying like, okay, but breathing, if you breathe oxygen, that is going to make damages on your body, and that creates aging. Or you always can go farther and farther. You can always go a step farther. Probably, I stopped the trade because, as I explained, I think it provides many advantages in many different domains, and we can do something with it. I don't disagree with you, at least not entirely. I don't disagree with you, but I think you can go even farther. Maybe you can go even farther than scarcity if you want to, but I'm using trade because it's a better tool. That's what I'm trying to explain here. You understand that's the way, and I don't quite disagree with you, but that's why I choose trade.
Yeah, if, for example, scarcity is a lower level of trade, for example, but what is different here and what is important is that we cannot do anything with scarcity right now, because to fight the scarcity we need to take something out of nowhere what we do not have right now, for example. So we need to, like, for example, create a plenty of bananas for all of people of the world. But how we can do that if we need, because to create the bananas we need another resources, and those resources need another resources, and so on. So we just cannot come together and create everything out of nowhere, even if this is a long procedure with a lot of years it will take or something like that. But the great thing about the focusing on trade is that at least anything we can have or can do with it at this moment, any of us, any of people.
I want to give you the perfect example based on what you said. It's organ transplants. There is a scarcity of organ transplants. Okay, I've wrote in a book about that. And actually, because they take the trade away and then they don't sell those organs, they force those who deal with the organ transplant, let's say in US, to provide the organs to who is closer to them, or they have a kind of algorithm to deal with scarcity because they took the trade away. They can manage this kind of scarcity in a humane way. But if you will put trade there and you will sell those organs to the biggest bidder, the biggest, like whoever pays more, it will fuck up that system. That's what I'm trying to talk about. Yes, it's a scarcity. It will be great to be abundance. You can deal with scarcity still if you remove the trades. You can find ways. There are many other scarce systems that you can deal with them if you take the trades away. If you don't make a profit out of this thing, either it's organ transplant or making bananas or whatever, you can find out a distribution method that is sane in that sense. I think that's the best example, because
the thing is,
if
you want to create abundance today, like today, right here, individual, you have to have a lot of money, and that's why it never happens.
For example,
it's
like any other resources, but again, you cannot have everything in exact same place to create everything for everyone. It's
possible if you're like Bill Gates, multi-billionaire or so.
No, I think even with all the money, you can't really create abundant everything. Like how? Multiply everything by 1,000, 2,000? You can't do that.
Exactly. And another problem is quantifying.
It's a misleading term. So, like Theo was saying, I mean, there are other ways to manage scarcity other than just trade. Is just one of those tools that deals with scarcity. It does a shit job at it.
Exactly.
We can do better.
Exactly, that's my point. Trade is a tool, and it does a really bad job. I'm not saying the other tools are the perfect tools. I'm just saying I think they are better than this one. That's all I'm saying.
And Huri, to your original point, if you have to take away the need for trade, then you do things trade free. There's lesser precondition that leads to trade, no?
Yeah, but if you have scarcity in the world, so I don't have a painting that I would like to have, just as an example, or apples, I have to trade. There's no, am I gonna die without food? Do I choose to starve, what happens? Because I have to trade because I don't have the resource. So how do we balance that? So maybe it's both, but I think one precedes the other, one generates the other. Because if we have a trade-free society but it's scarce in resources, what do we do?
Yeah, we don't know. You'll never have a perfect society. You can never have an abundance of like organ transplant. Maybe you'll never have that. But as I gave you an example, there are ways to deal with that if you take this polluted environment away. And of course, if other people are also scientifically educated, but mostly are those experts who deal with such things. But if you take these polluted things, the environment, then there are ways to deal with scarcity as well. You can never imagine that it's a world of abundance. There will always be scarce things here and there. But if those scarce things are quite trade-free and you take this motivation away, people will find a way to distribute this scarcity in a more humane way, in a more mathematical way, in a more saner way. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, but then we go to the humane, because some people like say that it's like what people say, that killing someone humanely, you're taking their lives. What the hell are you talking about? Like not even about animals or things like that.
Yeah,
just
I would
about the
debate that
humane.
there's nothing wrong with killing people. There is no
absolutely.
there is no value to human life. I mean, you're stardust, aren't you? They're all made of stars and other materials. So once we return you to the stars and everything, we're actually doing you a favor, aren't we? Making you better than something petty human. You can't argue like that. There is no, by saying humane, it's just simply meaning removing unnecessary suffering, undue suffering. Like Theo was saying, you can never foresee the whole thing. It's never going to happen. Like you can try and you could be super imaginative, but I think that's also good. It leaves you some room for imagination. Just because we can't doesn't mean that it cannot be done. I mean, if it can be done, it'd be awesome.
Exactly. Yeah, I would say that. Just because you can't doesn't mean it's not possible.
Yeah.
I certainly think of many ideas of how to solve these problems. I have a background in computer science. I didn't say that, but I've studied a little bit of computer science. And I think of many ways, algorithms to make the thing I was talking about, distributing resources. That's one of the things. I can sit down and write an algorithm. It may not be that great. Someone comes along and makes a better one, or I found that it's not general enough, whatever. But I can think of ways, and what I would say to that is, someone built a factory. You could say, let's say Ford or Tesla. They made a factory and took big batteries. I think we're the biggest factory in the world, and they had a plan. We'll build this factory because this was going to provide us for cheaper batteries, and with also volume. We need to produce all these many batteries. There's no way to do it without it. So if they were waiting, like many companies are doing that, actually, they're waiting for better technology to come. Tesla is making the cars. The other car companies are kind of just all waiting for better technology to arrive, cheaper technology to arrive. So they have a head start. So that's what I'm talking about. It's not that it's going to be perfect. Maybe the company is going to fail, like Tesla. It's a very real possibility for many reasons. So, but the point is, having a plan prepares you for a broader range of possibilities, I think. And every big project that I've seen, they had a plan, even if the plan deviated dramatically. They had an initial plan. At least they considered a bunch of possibilities beforehand. So in terms of plan, I don't think it's a problem.
Show me when Musk is not the 53rd richest person in the world, how that works for people, his plans about humanity, because I don't think it's going to work much to help many people. And what I want to say is
bro, I'm not talking about his plans. Just the car company.
Yeah. Well, it's his car company, so. But there are many companies out there who produce an abundance of food and then throw it away. Abundance of clothes, they throw it away. Abundance of stuff, they throw it away. Why? Because they have to trade. If they would not throw them away, they will lose in this trade game. So even when you create abundance today, you're not incentivized to do something with that fucking abundance. That's worse. That's a really bad thing. And you never should think about, yeah, but even with this idea, there are flaws, with trade free and so forth. I think there are. But never think in absolutes. I never think yes, I think it's better than what we have today. The incentive of I like that we have I like Wikipedia over Everypedia. I like NASA over SpaceX. I like Linux over Windows. They are not perfect at all. They have their own hosts. They are fucking shit. But I prefer those because they are less engaging to trades. Less of that, they are better. That's what I will like saying. Man, we like 2 hours and a half.
No. Okay.
I want no trade. I don't think less trade is better. It's like less poison. I think it's pretty bad. I want
it's
zero
exactly
trade.
like that.
So,
It's exactly like that.
Yeah.
Less poison. It's still poison.
yeah, but absolutely.
No, but don't think in absolutes. Don't think because even Trom is maybe it's not trade free for blind people or whatever. Don't think in absolutes. A little poison, if it doesn't kill you, then it's better than a bigger poison that will kill you. So don't take that in absolutes. Of course, less trades are better. Like if you are less engaged into trades, you're probably going to do better things. And I give you I recommend for people because sometimes I try to explain such things, but I do a much better job when I write and I give you so many examples. So if anyone thinks that maybe I don't make a lot of maybe sense or they are still, please read the book if you want to understand, because that's my detailed explanation of. I give you examples from healthcare. I give you examples from entertainment, from this, from that. I can just push everything here into this time frame. It's not like I just think about this idea and like, I think this trade is like no. For the past many years, I was like going to TDP. Listening to TZM, going to this abundance and scarcity, and I source everything. It's not like, I'm a philosopher. I'm imagining stuff. I know I'm sourcing everything to show you that healthcare is better when you are linear trades. Healthcare, education, technology, and so forth. Mostly, it's better, and that's what I'm trying to do here. And that's why we release this trade free, because that was the point of this TROM-Cast. That's why we release this trade free website, so that if you understand this idea and if you agree and you make trade free goods and services, I will say put that on your website. We put it on TROM-Jar, we will put it on the Music Wave, all of the website I have. And for example, it's just a way to do this. Like Dima wants to maybe create maybe videos that he labels like trade free production, whatever. Just do something and educate people about the problem, because I think in the end the problem is going to unite us, and it's the only way that it can keep us forward. Not a plan for the future. There are many people had plans of how to deal with the germ theory of disease. They went out of the window. They were not maybe good plans, but the problem itself pushed people to come up with some solutions here for a while, other solutions and so forth. Problems push society forward, and I feel like trade it's a big problem, and if we focus on that to push it away, I think we'll create a bit of a much better world than we have today. Not a fucking utopia or something like that.
Yeah. Incremental advances.
Me too.
Yeah, and probably the great focus here is that, for example, if I take your Yuri example about the algorithm that maybe you can do for resource distribution or something like that, what you prefer to do is just like you create a great algorithm, for example, not ideal, but and a good in all of way. Nobody did that before. What do you prefer? Just take it and trying to trade it for something like to gain a bunch of money and try to spend it on the cars and so on, or like make it trade free, for example. And when you make it trade free, you realize that there are a lot of other projects that are also trade free, and probably you don't need to trade it in this way. You probably just can use another trade projects to like thrive, go ahead with your life or something like that. So this is the idea. Like in the current society, the normal things to people, just when they come with some idea, just to proceed with like, I can just trade it, I can make a buck or something like that from it. But instead of that, if we take our goal with the tradefree.org, is just to put this seed into the people's head that maybe this is another way. Maybe you can just take it and put it in the trade-free way, something like that. So this is more about the idea, to spread the idea, to like showcase the people another way, probably. probably some people like prefer to trade something. We don't know. We cannot just say that no, you should do this trade free. You must. We cannot. We just can showcase the other possibilities that. And what the Theo's book is trying to do is just showcase that in some areas, in some like ways, something when you make your product straight free, it's even better and it's even more profitable to you to just put it in this way than you can try to trade it and like whatever probably fail off because you cannot put it into the market because there are a lot of big companies that cannot do that cannot make you to create your algorithm and trying to spread it around the world, and you just put your algorithm in the trash and something like that. This is the idea, I think personally.
And here's the thing that I maybe want to, if you want to add something else after this, okay, but maybe I want to end with this. It's like maybe people say, oh, look, nice people, and oh, look, part of the back, they do some volunteer things, nice people, but they don't have this grand plan. Then they are not strong. What the fuck do you talk about? Like making some software there, making this there, this trade free shit. Maybe it's not a big deal for some people out there. Maybe they say that, oh, look at TVP or look at others, they have this grand plan. They know how the future will look like. We go there, we go with them, okay? But I want to say that society maybe changes like that, even that huge, massive changes. Like compare the world like 500 years ago in terms of infectious diseases and compare it to today. And today we have like a utopia in terms of like infectious diseases compared to then when people were dying, like millions and billions of people were dying because of this disease. It took hundreds of years to solve this enemy with many solutions. That's what I'm talking about here with this kind of trade. If this is the enemy in hundreds of years, you push it away, the change will be massive, on a massive scale, and I think it's realistic. It's a realistic change. You may think that, we start small and it's just like, it's just an idea, you don't have plans for like cities and so forth. I think that's unrealistic. I think that's unrealistic to try to imagine this kind of future, even if you don't call it utopia, and you to transition towards. It's about now. I don't think it's about the future, because it's never a future there. You always can go farther into the future. So that's what I'm saying. Don't think that this is like, it's a nice idea. Just do some trade free stuff. Okay. You make some books, you make some videos, nice, and so forth. No, I think it's a grand plan, but it takes so long that people think that it's a bullshit plan. And I think it's so easy to sell movie-like ideas about the futures and then be like, wow, look at this amazing future, how this can look like. It's easier. People get more attracted to that, not about this. But once you get this idea, I think you realize it's more realistic than ideas of a grand future, of plans of how the future will look like. And maybe.
Yeah, I think it's you could say the opposite for the other plans, and that could be true. I mean, we only know in the future, right? But what I'm trying to say that is the logic applies to other projects as well. You might say, well, if you get my point, you'll see later that it's a grand plan. It starts small, but it gets there. But I don't see the mechanism. That's really.
I'm saying about like look at the examples. I'm just saying maybe this is wrong, but I'm saying look at the examples. They take a long time and they focus on a problem. That was my point. They focus on a problem.
Oh, sure.
They take very very long time to solve that problem. Not saying look at my idea. I'm saying maybe this is how it is, but I'm saying don't look at like short kind, like we will achieve. I know even TVP has these plans of building something by 2022 and then 2025. Maybe they will achieve to build something. I don't know. There are other organizations that sell the same kind of thing. I just doubt that this is how change happens, because I look at the past and that's how changes are in like huge bulk of years, like hundreds of years, and they focus on the problem. That's why they come up with changes. But I think it's like 2.5 and
yeah. If I may just finish my thought, then I don't think the Venus Project's approach is viable either. They're too slow. I think they're not good at executing whatever plan. to be honest, in my view. So I'm not even talking about them. I'm talking about I need a mechanism. Uh, if that you're you have an idea and this idea does not is not supported by the current capabilities. If because I mean you can do trade free today. Lots of people do that, but we know that whenever you trade free, you don't trade. You give something for free. That's we talked about it before. Actually, it's against your own interest a little bit. If you do 12 hours a day for free, you die by starvation. So the more we do that,
Theo is still here. He's been trade free for quite some time. He's alive and well. He's been living trade free. How long now, Theo? Theo, how long?
10 years or so.
10 years. Can you believe that? Whole
See, that's the idea here, because people donate me, or some years I stay with my parents, but that's the idea. It doesn't matter. I create trade-free stuff, and I help other people, and I inform other people, and that's my idea here. I don't care how you do it. Donations, sponsors, I don't care. You do it.
But I mean, if you have sponsors,
isn't that still a trade? Isn't somebody trading for you? That's what he's asking. Of course, man.
Someone to trade for you? Sorry, I'm not understanding.
No, that's what. Theo is not working.
Okay.
Okay.
So, I don't know
Theo
how
doesn't
you pay
work
your bill.
for.
I was asking.
Theo doesn't work for anybody, man. He works. If anything, Theo works for the trade free and TROM and all of that. He relies on donations. He has relied on donations. Right now, that helps pay his
donations.
Yeah.
So you're trading. There's a promise that you're gonna do stuff with this.
No.
I don't want to throw shade on you, but that's the reality.
No.
People expect you to further this. About Wikipedia that because they expect donations, they do, but actually it's the other way around. They do stuff and they need those donations because they live in this society. But the service itself is important here. Between Wikipedia and you, is this trade free? That's what you care. Like between me, like what I create from stuff and you, is it trade free? Do you have access? Is it mostly it is. I would say it is. You can download it, you can take it, you can share it and so forth. That's what it matters. Not who donates me money or what I do with the money. That's less important. The trade free service here.
Yeah, but there's a mechanism. I absolutely agree with you. It's a very important, and I appreciate what you do. But I'm not saying that. I'm not denying that. But what I'm talking about is there's a mechanism. Okay, there's a wave. You're actually pushing the problem away from you, but the problem is going somewhere. Someone is trading for you. You're not trading, but someone. So let's say the people donating to you, they get stuff for free as well. So they are not trading for you. They're kind of, this wave is being pushed towards you, so you don't have to trade. They don't have to trade, but someone else have to trade for them. So what I'm talking about is, okay, we start doing this, getting things for free. Someone's gonna pay the bill, and someone's gonna have to trade because we have a trade system. So I'm struggling to understand how we scale this to this whole society where no one is trading anymore.
The less and less trade-free stuff that you do, like trade-free goods and services, the less and less you do, the less I will need. If other people will do provide for me trade-free healthcare because of their response, maybe Bill Gates donate their money to provide trade-free healthcare, then I will need less stuff to trade for. Okay, so this is how you create a chain by little pieces here and there, not to create a chain like that, like you are trying maybe with the abundance. You create a bit here, a bit there, a bit here, a bit there, and sometimes they connect with each other. And sometimes I will need less trades if it is free. For example, here I have to pay with my citizenship, for example, and I get free healthcare because of my citizenship. It's less trade, it's less of a trade here. So I don't need to pay for that, which is great. I need less money for my donations. If people will donate me will provide trade-free food, I will need even less money. And maybe I will reach a point where I will rely on trade-free services and I will provide trade-free services. I'm not sure exactly how this works, but I think it's feasible. is feasible. It's like I do stuff, other people can do stuff. I suffered a lot. I didn't. It's the first time that I have like a fucking office. I never had like. I suffered a lot, but I still did that, and maybe other people will do so. And like the open source community is built upon the works of many people. So maybe
Shuri, the next time we talk, I will give you an assignment, like just for fun. You don't have to do it, but since you said that you have a background in computer science, might be something fun. And let's see if you want to
I have
make
a lot
that
on my plate now.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, no expectations when we're trade free. I'll put it out there because you're very interesting. You chew on many things at the same time, and it's super cool. Let's see what comes out of it. I give you an assignment, okay? And then we'll hold these TV. You can dangle that in front of the TVP guys next time. How about that?
I don't connect very much with them. I don't interface directly with them. I have friends that are POCs here in Brazil, but let me just say, last thing, I promise. I appreciate what you do. I appreciate that you do all what you do, and I hope you succeed, and I hope to be wrong. And I will stick around because I want to understand this. To me, it doesn't make sense right now. I don't see the picture, the mechanism working, but I'll stick around and see. So maybe I can understand better and see the holes in my thinking.
Did you read the TROM book, The Origin of Most Problems?
Probably not. I saw some materials, but not that one.
Take your time and read it. It's a fun book. It's a beautiful book. It's full of sources.
That's kind of the argument here. If the detailed argument, I can try to explain here, but of course for me it's difficult to just in a TROM-Cast to do all of that. So if you are interested, you can go to that, and if you don't disagree with something, you can even like write an email and so forth. I'm very open to any kind of. That's why this is open. People can come here and they can criticize or whatever. I think that's great because it's not like we are a cult or something. Like we hold these ideas. Come here and prove us like it's wrong, whatever you do, and I will be happy for that.
All right.
Okay, that's great. And Aaron, if you want to say something, or Cody, because you didn't say much.
You guys covered it. You guys covered it extensively, it seems. I will say, like, Yuri, I pick up on like what you're saying and like how you can't, like, eventually, like, pretty much everyone has to I wouldn't say
trade,
but yeah, give up the idea that they need to trade, and if you can like basically supplement these trade-free forces upon them, I guess the mechanism is like, I'm a person who's willing to do trade-free things like that. So it's a possibility that somebody wants to do that, even in a system where like, yeah, I'm paying to want to do this trade-free thing in a way. So I follow you on that, but I think that if we get you get enough people thinking like that and pushing towards a more efficient, a system that takes care of people, then you like you said, Tio, you don't build that chain or whatever. You got chains just popping up here and there, and sometimes they're gonna link, and it's kind of emergent.
Yeah. So the way I'm seeing this, so I'm trying to understand this. So do you think then that automation is a huge part in that? Because lots of people will start doing things for free, and people go like, okay, I don't want to be a cashier, or getting things for free. I'll just fuck off, and you want to do this for free? Go ahead. I don't. And so we need to automate as much as possible, right? From the bottom up, the jobs that no one wants to do.
Yeah, that's on the next TROM-Cast. That's on the next TROM-Cast. It's all about automation. Thank you for giving us the next topic.
Actually, we made one about automation, and it's even in the book. Yeah, it's even in the origin of most problems. I talk about automation, how important it is. I talk about several layers. Of course, I agree with that. So if you can read the book, and it probably will provide some answers for you. Maybe, I don't know. Aaron, do you want to say anything?
No. But I enjoyed it a lot. Really interesting.
Yeah, interesting. And yeah, next time, whoever wants to participate, if people from TVP or TZN want to participate, and the last thing, completely the last thing that I'm going to say is that I think most of us are good people, and we want to honestly change something about the society because we see it's fucked up. I think we might disagree on like the path where we're going, you know, but in the end, I think people should be appreciated for the fact that they give their times to even imagine that they can change this world towards a better world. And I think that's fantastic. That's not many people have this kind of attitude in this world. They don't afford it.
Yep.
Okay. The biggest TROM-Cast ever.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
Next
All
week.
right.
Next week.
Next week. All right.
Yeah, awesome talk.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, guys.
See you guys.
Bye.
Yeah,
Take care.
Yeah.
Take
Take care,
care.
everyone.